Mr. Speaker, will you please call the House to order?
The bill is passed.
We'd like to get a budget that represents the interests of the people who are standing here with me now.
To be part of the struggle to achieve a better society for all.
Hello and welcome to Assembly Update. I'm Liz Koenig. Today I'm joined by Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz, who represents the 81st Assembly District of the Bronx, and we're going to be talking about several issues, including some safety issues within the 81st Assembly District. And here he is, Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz. Good to see you.
It's wonderful to be here.
And I haven't had a chance to see you say Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And the session is well underway here. You have some major concerns in your district, but first I want to talk about something that affects a lot of people in New York State, and that's housing. What's happening in your district and throughout the city and New York?
Well, we have, or it's said that we have, and I believe it, a housing crisis in the sense that we don't have enough housing. We have a lot of people looking for places to live, but we don't have enough. And there's a mad rush to build a lot of housing, much of which is needed. But I happen to think that we can build 1 million units of housing and we'll still not have enough, because the more we build, more people will come. And, you know, we love the fact that people want to come to New York, but on the other hand, there might be a limit at some point to how many people the city could accommodate. But in any case, we do need more housing. And a lot of housing is being built, including in my district. My one concern, well, I shouldn't say my one concern, but maybe my greatest concern is that in a number of cases, single-family homes are being replaced by apartment buildings, and I know some people think that's a great idea. There are some organizations committed to that, but I happen to think that in my district, and I'm sure it's true throughout the city, we have a lot of different types of housing. We have, you know, huge buildings like the Skyview complex, and we have single-family homes. We have co-ops, condos, private homes, rentals, rentals that are regulated, rentals that are free market. So we have all kinds of housing in the district. But I think one of the things that makes our district beautiful is the fact that we do have single-family homes in the district, and that's throughout the district, in some areas more than others. And every time a private home gets knocked down and a building goes up, and it's happened on my block more than once, I feel very sad, because while it's true we're going to be able to accommodate more people, we're also losing some of the good character of our community, namely open space, trees, you know, greenery, and at some point it's all going to be gone. I was driving along Reservoir Avenue just the other day, and I noticed that there was, between 195th and 197th Street, Strong Street, I should say, there's a long row of private homes. But one of them is not there anymore. It was replaced by a multifamily unit, and I'm thinking, oh, you know, once that happens, you know, can the rest of the block be far behind? We have other beautiful streets like on Webb Avenue, Sedgwick Avenue, various streets in Riverdale and in other areas of the district, Woodlawn, Wakefield, you know, Norwood, Kingsbridge. In Kingsbridge right now, there's a controversy because a single-family home on West 232nd Street was knocked down, and they're building a 7-story building. Not only is it a building, but it's going to be not residential. It's going to be a charter school on the site where there was a single-family home. Can you imagine?
No, I can't imagine.
I can't think of a more harebrained scheme than that. Something which is going to negatively impact the quality of life for the people in that immediate area. But it's happening, and there's very little that can be done about it. You know, it's a private piece of property. It's there are no variances that the developer was requesting, so they didn't have to go to the community board or anything like that. And we're just seeing lots and lots of that. And I know that, I'm sure it was true 50, 60, 70 years ago, that when buildings went up, people were always against it. I believe the building that I lived in for many years, Tibbet Towers, I don't think it was welcomed by the people in the immediate neighborhood at that time. That's always true, but at some point we won't have any open space, we won't have any single-family homes, and that's not good for the community as a whole. And by the way, are they building enough schools to accommodate everybody? Are they dealing with the sewerage system? Are we getting increases in transportation and bus service and all that? Not really. So as the population goes up, we have to address. We have to deal with the services that are required as a result. So yeah, when I see that happening throughout my district, it's very disturbing, and I guess maybe that's part of progress, but I don't really think of it as progress. And that's one of the things that we get a lot of complaints about, and we get complaints about a lot of issues, and I tell people, if you have complaints, if you have issues, call my office, email my office. You could even write a letter. I know most people don't do much of that anymore. There are so many ways to contact us, but I love hearing complaints, not because I like the fact that there are complaints, but the fact that we can at least try to talk to people, maybe in some cases address it.
Yes, because you are one of those people who is like, when you debate on the floor, I'm like, nobody's going to mess with them. So, so I know that you're going to get things done. So, with some of the other issues have dealt with safety. I mean, speeding cars and people racing on the roads.
Since the pandemic, meaning since March of 2020, things have started to spiral out of control with respect to speeding cars and motorcycles. I happen to live on Henry Hudson Parkway, so I could look out my window and see the traffic, the not traffic. I can certainly hear things. And once the lockdown started, for a period of time, I don't even remember how long, probably a few weeks, there were literally no cars driving on Henry Hudson Parkway. But at some point, motorcycles took over. Some people realized, well, they have a speedway there and there's no cars that are going to interfere with them. And the motorcycles, the noise they make, the speed, and nothing was really done about it despite repeated requests by me and others. And then when the cars started coming back, the motorcycles didn't go away. And then people have these cars with, I guess they're altered mufflers, so they do something in the car and it sounds like machine gun fire. And then you have cars drag racing on the streets and doing donuts in the intersections. And unfortunately, there's almost no enforcement to try to prevent it. I'm not going to speculate as to why. I mean, we've been told more than once by the police that they can't chase cars. It's, they say it's a safety issue. I understand that. But it does seem that very little is being done to address it, and that's not an issue just for where I live. It's all over the place, and we get complaints from all over the place.
I live outside of Albany, and I know we have the same issue. It's very dangerous.
But most people in a particular area, they think the problem is just for them. They don't realize that it's all over the place, and that's what's going on.
It needs to be addressed. And there's another issue with tractor trailers parking on the streets.
Well, so tractor trailers, they found places that are, let's say, somewhat isolated. So over the Nereid Avenue bridge between Woodlawn and Wakefield, for example, along the Major Deegan, on Webster Avenue, and just a Goulden Avenue near Bronx Science and DeWitt Clinton High Schools. And they just leave their vehicles there as if it's their own private parking lot. And they're never towed even when they're parked illegally. And so people find that very annoying, upsetting, distressing, and so on. And we have been able to, in some cases, get some action. But the fact is, these vehicles, I guess they need a place to put their trucks. They have, most of the trucks I've noticed are those sleeper trucks where, there's like a place for the driver to sleep. But honestly, I never know if somebody's sleeping in there or not. I'm not going to knock on the door. But yeah, it's a problem. And also what I've noticed is usually there's a lot of litter with it. So that's something which the appropriate enforcement agencies have not appropriately enforced the rules as far as I could see.
That's another issue that needs to be addressed. You've gotten some complaints about shoplifting.
Yeah. it's like spreading like wildfire over the past, since the pandemic. We've had store owners, Rite Aid, some of the larger stores in particular, where there's just shoplifting. Nothing seems to be done about it. I know there are arrests. I mean, the police insist they're making arrests. Some of the owners have complained that they're not. So I don't know. I'm not necessarily there when the shoplifting takes place. There have been complaints by some. Well, what's the point? They're just let out because of bail laws. We passed legislation this past year that for somebody who's a repeat offender, in other words, if they're arrested, let's say for a serious shoplifting offense, and then they're out without bail, but if you commit the same violation again, yeah, they could set bail. So, those who are saying that there's no bail for that are just not, either they don't know what they're talking about or they're not being totally honest about it. But in either case, it's a serious problem. And so when you think about, the increase in shoplifting, running red lights, the speeding, there's sort of an atmosphere that's developed of chaos in a sense, and it's all happened since the pandemic. And even though the pandemic is easing, and crime statistics show that crime is going down, at least in the most serious categories, which is good news, but we want to get down to where we were before the pandemic and even lower than that. But there are serious problems, and I think the bad guys have to know that there are consequences to what they do.
Absolutely. Now, is there a lot of construction going on here? I know you've gotten some complaints about that.
Wherever there's construction, all too often, I'm not saying everybody, but it's not only the building of all the buildings, it's the fact that the developers, the builders, don't always follow all the rules. If they're allowed to work from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., I think, on weekdays, sometimes they're there earlier, they stay later. They do things that are not necessarily, that go beyond what they're allowed to do. So we do get a fair amount of complaints. And I know, just because of the construction where I live that we've had, in recent years, I've seen that firsthand, and it's very, it's irritating to people when you're hearing, boom, 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 first thing in the morning. Most people don't like that, and it's just a part of the quality of life, and it's.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're reaching out to your community counterparts to address all of these issues.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And we can deal with some of them. Some of them we're less successful at. Some of them we're more successful at. But we try to address everybody's issues. And people call us, or they call the councilman's office or the congressman's office. Sometimes they blame the community board for something which the community board had no control over. So, yeah, we got lots of things going on. But if you have a complaint, call. We love complaints.
Call, and you will do everything you can to help. Great.
Yes.
Thank you so much. We've been speaking with Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz, who represents the 81st Assembly District in the Bronx. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.